Ahoy there! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. Today was the second wave of developer AMAs on Discord, AMA meaning an Ask Me Anything. Basically, the topic this time was industry, PvE, and upcoming content, but they did answer some questions that were asked about other topics as well. Now, like last week, I'm going to do today's video and possibly one tomorrow going through every single question that was answered. So if you want to get the full breakdown, this video and the following video will be the full breakdown, every single question asked. Next week, I will do a roundup of the highlights and all the best bits, if that's what you're more interested in catching. Now, this is, of course, going to be like a podcast, basically. I'm going to be reading stuff, I'm going to be giving the answers and all that kind of thing. I will give some minor opinions on bits and pieces if there's anything really noteworthy, but I'm going to try and keep this as basically a factual rundown as best as I can. It's hard for me not to give an opinion on stuff like this, but hey, I'll try and keep that fairly short, and we'll save that for the highlights and the best bits video. Now, again, there are a lot of questions here, so I am just going to jump straight in. If you want to support the channel, you know the usual ways. It's all listed in the description down below, so let's begin. As mentioned in the AMA last week, says Melos, we have reviewed our 2021 and made new plans for next year. In 2022, we will mainly focus on fixing existing problems and quality of life updates. And I know you have a main concern about insurance. We're also looking for some new products to improve the industry gameplay and build a connection between industrial players and other players. New industrial ships in on the plan in the middle and late 2022 to enhance the mining experience and also looting experience. So I think this is possibly things like the Orca, the Porpoise, and who knows, maybe even some of the salvage stuff that we've been sort of hearing a little bit about recently, added in mid to late 2022. We're also planning to add new corporation management to help players perform massive co-op production effectively. So that's a really nice and interesting opening there to the developer AMA, where they're basically saying that 2022 is going to be the year of quality of life adjustments, with a focus on how to make industry and insurance better. Now, I know that the developers have watched my Fixing Industry video, so hopefully they take some of that feedback on board. I've put some ideas out there, there's a link in the description of how that works. So now we jump into the next ones. Rabbit says, hey guys, please try not to keep sending a same message. That will make it impossible for us to read other players' questions. There was a point where people were just spamming the same message over and over to try and get it noted. Is there a way to add trading goods like Quaif, etc., so that people can do some trading with NPCs? Currently, we don't have a plan on that, says Melos. We always encourage players to trade with each other, which, yeah, is kind of a point that if you want to have a player-driven system, you can't then just have a load of stuff that you can just drop off at NPCs. That said, I am still of the opinion that allowing exactly this in regards to minerals would be a great way to give a dedicated and confirmed sort of guaranteed income to industrial miners. Again, Fixing Industry talks about that in more detail. Can you add a wallet function that shows exactly what was sold and bought? Yes, this needs to happen. I'll forward this suggestion to related people. This is the whole point of, like, when you open up your wallet, it just says something was bought and something was sold. It'd be nice to know what it actually was. Why do Nosferatus draw power based on fullness percentage instead of gigajoules present? EVE Online designed it so that Nosferatus blah 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 blah. Thanks for your feedback, I will check this. Melos, if you're watching this, please don't change it. Ultimately, it came down to EVE Online used to do it this way. EVE Online used to do it this way, that if your big ship, something like, for example, an Ashamu, was draining something, that's a bad example actually, let's go with a Caracal. A Caracal is draining a frigate. It can drain a frigate as long as the Caracal's percentage is lower than the frigate's percentage. So if the frigate had 70% capacitor and the Caracal had 50% capacitor, it will drain until the two are equal. In EVE Online, they reworked it so that it only works if the tank is bigger than yours. So if you've got a 200 gigajoule capacitor, you cannot drain from a ship that has 150 gigajoules, but you can drain from a ship that has 300 gigajoules, for example. The concept of this and the difference is that this means that cruisers cannot feed off frigates, and battleships cannot feed off anything smaller than them. And I kind of see certain points here, but it does mean that something like a frigate or a cruiser, so a battle cruiser, for example, that has a 4,000 gigajoule capacitor compared to another one that has a 4,100 gigajoule capacitor, now it means the 4,000 one can actually use a Nosferatu to completely flatten the capacitor of the one before. Ultimately, just because EVE Online does it one way doesn't mean that that should be the way it's done. You can look at EVE Online as an inspiration, definitely, but here, I think the capacitor situation that we have is better. Otherwise, you kind of reduce the need for neutralizers, because a Nosferatu can do the same thing whilst feeding your own capacitor. Anyway, moving on. Is there a way to add trading goods like Quaifnut? We've already done these ones. Sorry, I cropped those down. Here we are. There have been many suggestions to decrease the ISK cost of shipbuilding and increase mineral costs. From the stats we got from EVE Online, ISK Insurance have produced ISK rather than sink ISK. Because people have a strong ability to predict when their ship will be destroyed, they can get a big benefit of this. It is a massive point. CCP themselves has said that making ISK Insurance was the worst thing they ever did. They would love to take it out, but the outcry would just be too big at this point in time. Ultimately, if you have your insurance pay out ISK, one, it means that you don't get the ship back, and thus your insurance isn't doing its design intent of getting players back into the game as quickly as possible, because you now have to go and wait for your ship to be built, or go to the market and buy the ship, whichever way you want to do it. It's also incredibly abusable. You insure a ship, you wait for it to, inflate in price, you destroy it, and you just get the ISK back and use it to buy a completely different ship. All those ships you're bored of flying, now you can just get ISK and do it again. It's exploitable. It's not the purpose that insurance was added for. I doubt they will ever go for it. Big Papa, when will you stop adding useless crap and fix the game? Melos says, now. Seriously, don't be this guy. Like, I get that you're probably frustrated, whoever you are, Big Papa, but seriously, show some bloody respect. These are human beings on the other end, and you might be angry that your video game isn't exactly how you want it, but grow up. Treat people with respect. The fact that Melos even answered this, I think, is just showing that the developers are bigger people than you are. When are we getting the new add-on structures, and can we get some info on them? 2 new pirate detection arrays will be added to the game around 2 weeks later, to increase base level and anomaly spawn rate. That's pretty exciting. So if you're in a system that has, say, for example, Tech 7 bases, you'll be able to put out a pirate detection array that will make it Tech level 8. Thus higher tier and so on and so forth. That's a really nice way to sort of adjust how your empire in nullsec actually is. I'd be worried that a lot of people are just going to push these to make every system as high as possible, which does defeat the purpose. It's nice to have a few sort of tier 7, tier 8 systems out there for lower tech players to go through, but it's a really cool thing that you can actually adjust that now, and the anomaly spawn rate is going to be adjusted with another one. That's really cool as well. If you've got, like, for example, in Catskull, there are many times where we've cleared out every anomaly in our system, and we're waiting on the respawn. Having a structure that we can use to make that respawn a bit faster, I'm all for. Consumables like boosters when? It's on the plan, but low priority. I'm not personally a fan of boosters, getting additional skill. I don't know. This is a controversial point. It's on the plan. I'm not going to give an opinion on this one. There's too much to talk about there. When are tier 4 rigs coming? Not on the plan. So why are they in the game? I guess this is one of those things. They're still in the game because they're trying to figure out how and when they're going to add them, but just, what's the point in having tier 4 rigs on the market if they're never going to be added? It's not saying they're not going to be added, it's just they're not on the plan yet. Eventually they will be, they just haven't figured out how. Will the entire Destroyer line be retooled first, before any other big balance updates? Melos says retooling is something that can't be small. Rework on the Destroyer will have great impact to other ships. Now, they have confirmed that Destroyer balance is a big priority for them in the upcoming balance patch, which still looks like it's going to be April. But I have been talking with Melos a lot about sort of the design intent of Destroyers, what they should be, what they shouldn't be, that kind of thing. We had some really interesting back and forth. I need to ask Melos if I can actually release that as a video. I think it'd be quite interesting to showcase how that all went. But basically, Destroyers just aren't fulfilling their current design intent, and so they're not sure how to do that, or if they should even change the design intent. I would argue that all we really need is just a bit more variety. Right now, Destroyers are basically interdictors. The Guardians aren't up to scratch, the combat ships stop at Tech 5 for turrets, and the assaults are kind of cool. I think, the Tech 10 assaults do actually really well. They could probably use some boosts, and the Tech 7 assaults, or Tech 8 assaults, I can never remember which one the Destroyers are. Destroyers are Tech 8, I think, could use with some boosting as well. there's a lot we can talk about there, but it's nice to know it's happening. Oh, here's Big Papa again. Currently we have some balance problem. Before we fix them to an acceptable condition, we will not introduce too many new ships and all this kind of thing. Big Papa then goes on a big rant about how this is utter bullcrap and all this kind of thing. Melos again gives this guy screen time, goodness knows why. Adding content doesn't always mean adding new ships. We will do quality of life updates, add new corporation management tools, and some new PvE and PvP gameplay, which is awesome. I'm actually really hyped for this. I've been saying for a while that I hope that this whole thing with capital ships is just something they need to get out of their system. That 2021 was the year of new content, and then 2022 is going to be the year of balance, adjustment, tweaking, and sort of getting everything into, you know, ship shape, so to speak. And that clearly is what they're doing from this point onwards. Will chats get timestamps? What's being done to optimize Western servers so they can handle more than 500 pilots? They answered this in last week. It's nothing to do with Western or Eastern servers. Get that racist bullcrap out of here. Stop trying to stoke a division between the player base. Ultimately, what happened with the big one of 1,500 people in the battle? They manually turned on time dilation. They were there when it happened so they could do so. The automated system isn't working properly. They are working on tweaking it. Taylor's Fox says the majority of optimizations have been done on the client side. The server hasn't noticed any performance issues. This is a client problem. We've got a lot of people playing on potato phones, and that slows things down for everyone. The only way you can ultimately fix this is to cut off some of the bottom level phones and make it so this game only runs on higher level devices. But that cuts out a significant portion of the player base and is not something I would recommend. But if you want a quick fix, think about it. That's what you're asking for. In our opinion, the problem is that the scope of devices is rapidly increasing, while client adaptation seems to be a slow process. There we go. I can repeat that it's our current priority and we have devs who work only on this issue type. That's a really interesting thing to know, that they now have a couple of developers, or some developers, who are working exclusively on server stability, client stability, and sort of like the large battles and stuff like that. That's a really cool point to know. Will there ever be pirate faction missions in NPC stations in nullsec, like there is in highsec, just like EVE Online? Yes, says Melos, and I've got a little hallelujah coming into my head. We're planning new PvE content for 1 to 5 fleet in next August. That's amazing. It's a long way off yet, but getting actual sort of NPC missions, this would be fantastic. Getting proper agent missions, faction LP, I could do an entire video on how amazing that would be. Melos then goes on a big rant where he lists out a load of questions all in one goes. Additional corp hangers. No, but something similar to hanger folder is on plan, so this is the idea to sort of group things into different hangers. A role similar to security officer from EVE Online for CTA prep? Yes, so new roles are coming to corporation management. More wallets and divisions? Yes, so your wallet is getting more divisions and ways to separate your corporation money. Alliance mail. No, our concept is still to make corps as the base social relationship of the players. Will not provide too many tools on the alliance side. Again, I'm all for this. I do think that there should be a way to mass mail like all the officers, all the CEOs, so that the guy at the top of the alliance can issue a mail and then that can be copied or edited and like streamed down, but I kind of get where they're coming from. They want corporations to be the biggest focus, and alliances are groups of corporations. It's a subtle difference here that, on one hand, you've got corporations being the focus, and then alliances are just corporations grouped together. The way EVE Online looked at it is that alliances are the main thing, and the corporations are just the building blocks. And I quite like the individuality that adds to corporations being corporations. Each corporation has its own unique flavour, and I like that. And we have this in Cat Skull and Void, where different corporations have sort of different focuses, different ways of doing things. They just all fall under the Void Charter. I like that. It's kind of almost like the United States of America, whereas each state has its own way of doing things, but they are then amalgamated into one large country that does have its own overarching rules. That's how I see it, at least. Access control lists, not on the plan. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what that is. I've never run an alliance in EVE Online. I think that's to do with how you can control who has access to different things, and you do it via sort of a list and drop down, but I don't know. Corporation medals and awards, on the plan but low priority. We talked about this in a dev Q&A a while ago, adding more medals and awards and things like that that players can have, even allowing certain corporations and alliances to design their own. Awesome, I love it. It's on the plan, but it's not coming soon. Renaming corporation citadels for Plex, as with corp and character names. If ship names are being tested now, is this much different? This is different, but it's on the plan. Good, because we've got some citadels that we've captured and had to sort of reallocate between people that are still using the old names. It would be nice to be able to rename those. Exportable corporation logs, API preferred, but any medium would be an improvement. Not on the plan, but I think this is something worth to do. I'll check with related people. Interestingly enough, that's talking about API access, which does open the door for more. Character Bazaar or SP Injectors, is this answer still 2022 Q4? SP Injectors is not on the plan, which is good. Character Bazaar is delayed to next year. Okay, cool. Glad to see SP Injectors not on the plan. Are station containers coming? Yes. This is the ability to split stuff up in your own station and sort of, you know, like you have a container that is just for your modules, a container that is for like all of your rigs and stuff like that. You can split things up nicely that way. Carrier E-War modules, not on the plan, but nice to take into consideration. I'd argue they don't really need them yet, but yeah, it's something to add eventually. Character triage or fax, force auxiliary, not on the plan. This is a bit of a this isn't entirely honest here. It's not on the plan as in they don't have a set time, but it's definitely something they've thought about because they have shown images in the past, and back in April I think it was when they did the NetEase big thing, they showcased actually an image, a general like a CGI image of the Mochizuki, which is I think a dreadnought for the Anjung. We don't actually know what tonnage it's going to be, but it's theorized to be a dread. And another ship, which, when you translate the text, does read as a force auxiliary. So there is a Yangjung force auxiliary currently sort of being designed. We just don't know when it's going to come. Ammunition and scripts on the plan. Huzzah, this is amazing. I could again do an entire video on why ammo is so good, but the short version of it is a massive, and I do mean massive, boost to industry, especially for lower level industrial players who now have a way to get on the industrial ladder. And it's really good for both PvE and PvP pilots as well, as it allows you to mix and modify your ship fit and design exciting new builds, which is really, really cool. Dedicated capacitor, logi, battle cruisers and battleships. To be decided. This is rather than logistics being, you know, getting bonuses to shield boosting, remote shield boosting and remote armor repairing, getting a logistics ship that is dedicated to capacitor transferal. Are these in EVE Online? Again, my logistics knowledge on EVE Online is limited. I don't think it is, but it could be an interesting thing to add into EVE Echoes, to have a ship that is dedicated just to keeping ship's capacitor alive. That said, that's a dangerous sort of ground to go onto. As capacitor is life, one of the defining things of logistics is how well they can keep up, and so if you can just sort of web and chain sort of capacitor logi, I don't know, I'm in two minds on that one. Destroyers on the plan. Yeah, the destroyer balance, I think they're well aware at this point, is something we all want. When we can get in-game ship fitting preview like in EVE Online, they announced this in the last AMA, this is 100% coming, it's done, it's just to be added. It's not our intention to copy everything from EVE Online, which is a good way of looking at it. In addition, I am replying to others about stuff you find very useful from EVE Online. EVE Echoes does not face the same challenges that EVE Online did, at least from technical perspective of control, hardware, etc., but for sure good practices and some positive game experiences we try to follow. It's impossible to cover all requests and suggestion, this is why we try to very accurately choose our future plans. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. Look at EVE Online as inspiration, not as a blueprint. If you want to play EVE Online, go play EVE Online. And I'm not saying quit EVE Echoes, but they are two different games that do things in two very different ways. There are some things I really miss about EVE Online. There are some things that I absolutely adore about how Echoes does it. We talked about Capacitor earlier. That's just one of multitudes. Anyway, the in-game ship fitting preview, like in EVE Online, is on its way. They confirmed that in the last week's AMA. At the time you told me that the rising pirate system bases could be raised to a level. You told me this almost, this is the new modules and things coming, sorry, the new station, citadel, and the new citadel structures. You'll be able to see it in around 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, just in time for Christmas, we're getting those new structures. Officer modules. We still try to hold it as a reward for some special events to make them more exclusive. These are the purple tier modules. And I do think they could probably be dropping a few more of these in different positions now. When they did the freighter raid, having one, like, purple laser just doesn't really work, because now whichever ship you fit that to is just going to have one laser of purple quality, and then all the rest are going to be blue types. I think they need to be dropping these a bit more regularly and in larger numbers, but yeah, I kind of agree with making them exclusive and event-based. That's pretty cool. We need more ship diversification, would like them to be more distinct and unique from a skill and capabilities perspective. Good point, we'll share this with responsible designers, and actually again this was confirmed by Melos in the last AMA, that the developers are looking to now make ship specialization more a thing, make different ships a more unique experience, that it's not just going to be, oh, this is the Cyclone, this is the Cyclone Command, which is the Cyclone but better and having command module skills. Actually adding some specialization to it is something that they're looking to do in a big balance pass coming soon. Nullsec NPC stations are only good for faction wargames. Please remove them and allow faction wargames to be... again, back with the whole NPC stations being removed. They're saying they're not going to do that. I agree with it. I think keeping the NPC stations is fine. It's just people whining that, oh, our space gets invaded because of NPC stations. No, your space gets invaded because you're too lazy to stop people invading. That's why, bite me. Ultimately, it's nice to see, though, that the new mode of faction wargames will be able to join anywhere when you are docked. This is a good point, because I would like to see more like having the previous faction wargames available from corporation citadels, even outposts. It would be nice to be docked at an outpost and still be able to queue for faction wargames. Our concept is still to make corps as the base of the social relationship of the players. We won't provide too much support at the Alliance. We currently still want to keep the corps size at around 200. The question here then was obviously, would you like to expand? Are they going to make corporations bigger? Can you put more people in a corporation? That's basically saying, well, if you want to make... We want alliances to be the focus, but you're saying you want corps to be the focus. Can we make corps as big as alliances and just kind of sneak in the back door that way? This decision comes from some data analysed about the retention rate of different players and different size of corp in both EO and EE, but still thanks for your suggestion. I agree with this. I think 200 is a good number. Anything more than 200 and it starts to become an alliance. It's less exclusive at this point and you lose your identity. It becomes less manageable. There's so many knock-ons for this. I think 200 people in a corporation is absolutely fine, and then you twin those corporations together to make an alliance, which is sort of that overarching structure. Yeah, at the moment, a lot of the tools that we use to manage alliances and that are done via Discord, but that doesn't mean you need to change the basic structure, it just means we need more of those tools in-game. Looting and salvage. Will the loot changes be quality of life improvements like tractor beams, collection drones, mobile depots, that kind of thing? Yes, says Melos. We'll provide some loot expert ships and items. Yee! I'm trying to remember what it is. It's the one that looks like the porpoise. I can't remember. I used to do salvage in a Thrasher with tractor beams on it. With salvage beams on it. Because details might be changed in the future, I can't share too much to avoid confusion. But salvage is coming, we're getting dedicated loot ships, which is awesome. If you're sending a fleet out of battleships to do a load of PvE, having a ship that then has to go and pick everything up, oh god, how many times have we done Inquisitors, Scouts, or Dead Spaces and gone, oh, who wants to be Loot Master? And it's like, oh, I guess I'll do it. Now you can actually make it a dedicated role, and, people who are better at it. That's awesome. Will the new pirate detection array be able to increase base level to 11? No, maximum of 10. Good. We need the reason I say good there, just to explain, is because I don't want anything to ever go to 11. It takes a long time to reach Tech 10. If you start adding Tech 11, then you're going to want Tech 11 ships, and so we get a creep. We need more ship diversification, would like them to be more distinct and unique. The same question as before. Yes, it's one of our goals in next year and future balance updates to add more ship specialization. Oh god, Big Papa back. Why are you lying to us? Actions speak louder than words. For crying out loud, you asked a question as to how these guys are going to be actually, changing the game, and then when they give an answer saying, yes, actually, we're doing what you want. We're done adding all the new stuff that you want to call useless. We're going to be focusing on quality of life changes and fixing things. And when they say, yes, that's going to be our focus, you just call them liars. Again, Melos, why are you giving this guy time of day? Just, jeez. I get that you're bitter, I get that you're angry, and I know that that comes from a place of being enthusiastic about the game, but it's turned into toxicity. Seriously, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, is this who you want to be? Quality of life and fixing old problems will be put to a very high priority for the next year's plan. Maybe there's some kind of confusion between the developers and players and what kind of game of Eve Echoes is, and they go on to a conversation here about, like, is it player-driven, is it this, is it that? Mela says, I do agree that Eve is a big, connected and dangerous universe, and we do consider macro for every decision. But I mean, with individual experience, it's also important to keep in mind we want to extend this universe, that's why we're trying to consider more than macro. Basically, everything affects everything, and just because something negatively affects you doesn't mean it's overall not a good thing for the game. That's something we do have to bear in mind, something I have to bear in mind, because sometimes nerfs to something I'm enjoying exist to make the game more enjoyable for other people. Buffs, to me, aren't necessarily about nerfing other people. So, for example, the situation of interceptors being the way they are. Right now, nerfing interceptors, I think, genuinely, it's going to hurt pilots who are dedicated to interceptors. But if we can get new ships in there, it becomes a new exciting way of actually getting pilots into different ships, and it means that we get rid of this horrific interceptor meta and we can start flying other ships. It sucks to be an interceptor pilot who's getting nerfed, but for the overall game, it adds a lot more variety and other people are getting buffs out of that nerf. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this first section of the developer AMA. They are asking another load this afternoon. They're answering another load of questions at, I think it's 1300 my time, 1100 UTC. Of course, I will be taking screenshots and I will go through every single question and answer that is given during that one. Again, if you enjoy this, just make sure you are subscribed so you catch that second video. But at the same time, if you're not interested in these big long videos and you've kind of got what you want from part 1 here, there will be a highlights and sort of roundup video coming early next week once I've combined that all together. I've also been told there is no developer Q&A this week, so I'm putting this one out tonight anyway. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching this one right the way through to the end. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on the questions that have been answered. Hopefully my mics hold up through this entire process. I am sort of playing with the setup to make sure that there's no loose connections or anything, but hey, there we go. Otherwise, thanks for watching, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.